daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space, yeah. Hey daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space.
Hi,
Hey, William.
Jacob. How are you?
Well, full disclosure, I'm like fighting something. I think it's my sinuses. Like my face is really swollen and I feel foggy
Well, you look
and
beautiful.
coffee. Oh,
You
stop. I
you
don't.
sound great.
You sound better. How are you?
Good. Speaking of sounding better, I think we have figured out the sound quality issues on this podcast. So, by we, I mean I think I just turned my microphone on right now.
I think you turned your microphone on right. And also there's like a handy button that I just hit that's like normalize audio levels. Because
Ah,
we're still coming in different, but like whatever.
okay.
How was your week?
Oh, I went to trivia at High Tops
Okay.
last week. First of all, not very good at trivia. Are you good at? I feel like you're good at trivia.
I'm good at trivia, but I don't
Okay.
really like bar trivia. My impulse, full disclosure, is really to cheat.
Oh, okay.
It's like I care more about winning than I care about.
Actually knowing the answer. It's not about, it's
Yeah.
not about knowing, it's about winning. Okay. They were
hmm
very strict about cheating there. But I'd never done it before. I was like, I don't really like trivia. I'm not really good at it. Um, I went and it was a special reality show themed night. It was horrible. It was
I would have been
like
so good at that.
I knew one out of 75 questions. I mean, gay people literally, it was like, who was the most recent person voted out of the traitors? And that was like the first question. I mean, gay people are insane. Like the things they knew were, I called Lee. I was like, Lee, you need to come over here and, and help us
Yeah.
out. And he was literally like, there's a crisis. I'm on my way. I was there in like 10 minutes. And he knew everything. But the questions, they'd be like who was like the guest judge in like season 9 of American Idol like episode. They were so referencing shows I'd never heard of before. They're like, who won the Searching for Elwood's the musical reality competition show? Have you heard of this?
I remember it being when it was on, because I remember very specifically there was this one scene where they had to sing while like on a spin bike.
I heard they had to sing while walking in heels on a treadmill.
Uh, Something like that. I don't know. This is just what this is what I recall. I didn't watch the show. I just saw like a clip, and I remember being like, "That's really impressive. I can't do that."
Well,
I'm
is it as impressive as singing upside down in a harness hanging from a fake redwood tree?
nothing. Nothing is.
Uh,
Nothing is.
um, well, should we get into our new book?
Definitely, like I am definitely under the weather. Something is wrong, but we're gonna
Okay.
fight through this.
Maybe
Um,
you got an alien virus going through you.
I do, and oh my god, please don't. Yes, let's get into our new book, which is Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Is that how you
Uh,
say it?
Tchaikovsky?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the so apparently he has like a different spelling of his name, but then they use this, which is sort of like Tchaikovsky the composer,
That's interesting.
but
Just
but he's Czech, I believe.
he's
Uh,
Czech.
yeah, but English, but from the UK.
Um, yeah, alien. I'm so excited to talk about this book. Also, I've been cracking up at was it last episode and you were like, our next book is really a departure for us. Um, just like such a funny thing to say when you only have one book as a point of reference.
I
So I'm like,
know.
I think it's not misport, it's a departure. But then I've been reading this and I'm like, actually, it really is a departure for
It
us.
really is like if you think of the base camp that we've established being Mistborn, this is like such a departure. We're on an excursion.
Well, I know because a lot of it was us like kind of making fun of Brandon Sanderson and Mistborn, but like we can't make fun of this book.
I can't make fun of this book. This book is too smart for
That's
me.
too smart. I was like, I feel like I was smarter than like Mistborn a
Yeah,
little
like
bit, but
that idiot. Like
I'm
he
like,
missed that plot hole. His writing's bad. And this one I'm like,
I'm like, I don't really
ooh,
like
ooh,
this is like a real book. I mean, no offense
ooh.
to the Sanderson heads out there, ourselves included. But okay, Jacob, so you chose this book, so let me know how'd you find it? What made you choose it? Tell me everything.
Honestly, I found it because the cover is really good. But also, like, the cover is stunning. It's this, like,
Beautiful.
gorgeous pink to orange background with a yellow, like pineapple looking thing illustration on it.
Well, I think it's that.
Very,
I think it's the tree like thing he
I,
sees. We'll get there.
I think it's the tree, or it's like the structure of the kiln builders.
Yes.
But anyway, so I'd been interested in Adrian Tchaikovsky for a long time. Whenever you're like late night Googling, asking for like the best science fiction books of the year, or like space operas, his name tends to come up. I haven't read anything by him before. You haven't either, right?
No, I think I downloaded a sample once for what's his big series, Children of Time.
I downloaded a sample of Children of Time once, and I read the sample and I was like, "This is really good," but then decided to not go for it. I think because it felt a little bit difficult.
I think I went through the same thing. I've heard, Jacob, that there are space spiders in that series, so maybe not for you.
Maybe not for me. So there's like actually a lot of, he's like known for his space spiders, is what it seems like, and his like 3 big series. He's been publishing since 2008. His first big series is a 10-novel fantasy series called Shadows of the Apt, which is mostly fantasy, but the fantasy creatures are insects.
Wait,
and
that sounds incredible.
I know, this sounds like so up your alley. And it features like steampunk and like biological, like scientific concerns. So, for example, book 1 is called Empire in Black and Gold, and the Empire in Black and Gold is the Wasp Empire.
So like they're like bee people,
Yeah.
and is it like steampunk versus like biopunk kind of?
Yes, and I think the thing that I've like, the main character is a beetlekin.
A beetlekin. I love when you put kin. I love when you put
know.
kin on the top of another species or whatever. Beetlekin.
I know, it makes it so cute. And then there's the other one, the one that we downloaded a sample of, Children of Time, Children of Ruin, Children of Memory, and that's a trilogy. Where the first one, I guess, is about sentient spiders on a planet.
Oh, they're sentient spiders.
The second one, I guess, is sentient octopi.
Oh, I've heard of this. They fly spaceships, and the spaceships are filled with water because they're octopi.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to go back to the beetlekin for a second. You know what that reminds me of?
Perdido Street Station.
Yes. China Mieville. They had like cockroach people, right?
Yeah, there was like a scarab head. And Lynn, I think, was the beetle character in Perdido Street Station. Like, the thing was that she got fucked in the back of the skull.
Yes, of course. Well, she was like also, she was like
where her parts were.
She was like brain damaged. It was really kind of dark and messed up. Not brain damaged from the
not from the skull fucking. That was like supposed to be happening. That was her biology. Let's not get twisted.
Beetlekin. You know they're talking about, what's it called, like chitin? Isn't that something?
Oh, chitin.
They're talking. They're talking about chitin all the time. Okay, wait. And I bet there's like creatures who like spit like pheromone communication stuff too in this beetlekin world.
Oh, I'm sure, because Adrian Tchaikovsky like studied zoology and psychology.
Okay,
that's what he like went to school for, and I guess I didn't really find too much out, but I guess he like left. Being dissatisfied with that education, because I think that he thought it should go further and weirder, and it's like and I think that we'll get there with like what's going on in this novel, but it's like very confined into certain patterns of thinking. The other thing that I read about him is that he's a LARPer.
Yes.
So he uses his live action role playing games to like chart out parts of his books. Like an action sequence, he'll LARP.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I heard that he was really into like Dungeons and Dragons or being a game master, and in college, this actually now makes total sense. He was running a game where there were bug people fighting each other, so this makes total sense with that.
And that became the Shadows of the Apt 10-part series, which released between 2008 and 2014. I guess he tried.
That's not that long for 10 books to come out. Wait, what is the math on that?
They're all like 700 pages. But I guess he'd been trying since like 1996 to get these published, and then finally they came out in 2008.
Did you hear about? I read what his first foray into fantasy books was.
What was it?
Dragonlance.
Oh, stop. It's a sore subject.
So what you referenced that we got it? What you said we got in a fight about Dragonlance in Rome? Can you say it on
Yeah,
the pod?
I can say it on the pod.
I don't
Um,
remember.
yeah, so this was like whatever. William and I studied abroad together in Rome. We shared about a 100 square foot room overlooking the Tiber,
The
which is
burning hot Roman sun.
no air conditioning. It's a really long time to spend in that close of quarters with somebody when you have all of the same classes, all of the same extracurricular activities. We literally had about 2 to 3 hours apart a week,
It
I
was
would
like
say.
it was like could have like handcuffed us together, and it would have been like the same.
The same outcome. And so the last night that we were there was a really dramatic night, like on all sorts of levels, because it was our last night studying abroad, whatever. And William and I got in a fight at dinner because I didn't like Royal Assassin,
Oh,
but Robin Hobb. I didn't think it
okay.
was as good as Assassin's Creed.
Well,
And
now I'm pissed.
you got frustrated at me because you're like, our whole relationship is a lie. You don't even you don't even like fantasy books, and then and then we sort of like healed that, but it continued into like our last, like we went on a small group studied abroad thing where it was all kids from our school. We had these like camp counselor style RAs who were with us, and one of the camp counselor RAs was talking about how she loves Dragonlance. And you were like trying to stop me from hearing
Why?
that you were talking about Dragonlance because you thought I would make fun of you
Aw, did
for it
you?
not be for no. I
Did
mean,
you?
it would have been, it might have been my inclination.
Well, I'm sure your face said it all. I'm sure you like rolled your eyes and scoffed, and now it hurts even just thinking about this imaginary situation.
I know, but it's like, look, I have atoned for my past sins of pretension. This is
We've come full circle. Wait,
this podcast.
but have you read Dragonlance?
No, never.
So Dragonlance is, I think it's by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, and it started as who I thought were two women, and I was like, yeah, fuck women, but I guess Tracy's, I mean, not fuck women, I mean like
Fuck men.
fuck men,
Fuck
sorry,
men.
yay,
Well,
yay
yeah.
women. And I guess Tracy's a guy, but anyway, it was a D&D campaign that they did that then they turned into Dragonlance novels, but Dragonlance was like my Lord of the Rings when I was younger.
Oh,
It was like my because it's just like high fantasy dwarves, elves. It's a Lord of the Rings ripoff, kind of, but like a lot more characters, juicier. And it was truly my like first like deep dive foray into fantasy, the fantasy genre.
I always thought because the Dragonlance had like a designed logo that
Mhm.
it looked
Cheap,
not good, cheap,
yeah, like it
like a
looked like
product.
yeah. I mean, I think because I then think they did do Dragonlance. I think yeah, they sold the name or something. Other authors wrote under that moniker and or domain, and they had games and stuff. But well, Adrian and I are aligned with our love of Dragonlance.
Do you know what's one other thing about this book that I found in my research?
What?
In a starred review,
Oh,
Kirkus Reviews compared uh, it to the novel The Children's Star by Joan Slonchevsky.
what?
Do you remember Joan Slonchevsky?
Who the heck is that?
You called her Joan Slozengooski?
Wait, what? My teacher? You know,
Your teacher.
my teacher, Joan Slozengooski? Wait,
Slonchevsky.
Slonchevsky? You know, I kind of was thinking of her books when I was reading this because she was a teacher I had at college at Kenyon, a very um, smart. She was a scientist, and she was so nice and so nerdy and so smart, and wrote these really hard sci-fi books. Kind of very similar, actually. I mean, not
Yeah.
similar in terms of like writing style, but did you ever read any of them?
No, I never read any of them.
I believe it. Well, she wrote a book of like all female blue people. It was kind of like Avatar, actually. There were like these blue lesbians on this Waterworld planet.
That sounds really good.
And then this
Um,
guy tried to have sex with one of them, but she didn't have any sort of way to penetrate her because they didn't have any men on their planet.
it's really kind of
Aww.
upsetting. Oh, poor thing. My
Anyway,
only interaction with Joan was that they read our names at graduation, and they read my name J-Sub.
Jason.
Jason.
Okay, Jason. What? Also, like,
Jason.
Jacob is a really normal name.
Jacob is famously not a name.
Jacob. She taught a class. We did do like a science credit, and I am like, well, we'll soon learn talking about this book, but I don't know heads or tails about science or math or numbers. And so, but we had to do like a what are they called? Something credit or quantitative
Uh,
reasoning QR credit or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
And she taught a class that was like science and science fiction, I think is what it was called. So we would read sci-fi books and then talk about the science in it, and it was like one of my favorite classes I've ever taken. This is my way around it. Okay, Joan, we'll have to try to read about her books and try to get her on the pod.
Oh, we absolutely do.
That would be amazing, actually.
She needs to. They
Jacob,
need to apologize to me.
Joan. Okay, well, I need chase up. She's like chase up. It's so good to see you. Okay, but let's get out of Rome. Let's get out of Kenyon, and let's go to Kiln.
To Alien Clay Part 1, Liberté.
Liberté.
William, situate us at the beginning of Alien
Okay,
Clay.
so I would say, are we in deep space when it first starts?
We're in deep space.
We're in deep space. So we have a spaceship hurtling through space, through the aether. We have a spaceship hurtling through space, and a really kind of really great, I thought, opening sequence.
Fantastic.
It was really jarring and intense, and I've never seen it done. But it starts with a spaceship going into orbit around an alien planet and then just breaking apart. Like
Yes.
a guy wakes up in his sleep pod where he's been. I think they described it as him being freeze dried. He was like freeze. All these people were freeze dried in these little plastic cheap pods, packed like sardines, sent away to this alien colony, and it's a one-way ticket. So the spaceship doesn't need to come back. So the way that they sent them, that's the most like economic, is that the spaceship just goes in to orbit and just breaks apart and just rips apart into pieces. You're waking up out of this freeze dried, you're disoriented, and the spaceship is just ripping apart all around you.
And essentially, they've like freeze dried them at the moment of death. And so they're like, they are resurrecting, they're coming back to life, but they're also, he describes like the way that your memory processes coming back to life. And it very much is like there is like a gap in your memory from when you were just freeze dried. So you're essentially like, the character is sort of being born again as the ship breaks up and hurtles to this alien planet with no context. He can look around and see that this is happening to other people. He starts to recognize some of them. Some of them are dead.
They didn't survive the process of freeze drying them.
Yeah. And then at the same time, as a reader, we're like coming into consciousness in this world. We've never experienced it before, and it's all sort of alien. I thought this intro was brilliant.
I thought it was brilliant. It was also like, what was even the first line? He was like, "You're never supposed." They say never start a story with a waking, but when you've been hard asleep for 30 years, it's difficult to know where else to begin. And already, even like the narrator, the tone, it has this sort of funny voice to it, and yeah,
The writing's like good.
the writing is good. It's literary, but it's also a little tongue in cheek, and it's dark. It's Yeah, so we have these people waking up, and we find out that they are prisoners. They are political dissidents, prisoners from we don't know if it's Earth. Do we know if it's Earth or if it's like another?
I think it's Earth centric. It's the Mandate is the
Okay,
name of this like overarching
oppressive,
social system. Yeah.
oppressive regime, totalitarian government called Mandate, and they sent any sort of rebels, political dissidents, and they package them up, freeze dry them, and send them away to this like extrasolar penal colony.
Exactly. And it's sort of like a what the fuck, because at the same time that we learn that this guy is a prisoner being sent on a one-way trip to his death to the alien planet Imno 27G, also known as Kiln, that he's an ecologist.
Yes, that was great too. He's like, so the spaceship's ripping apart. He's in this plastic sleep pod where they just fall into orbit, like fall into the planet. And he's looking around and it's so chaotic. He keeps saying, "He's like, I'm an ecologist. I'm an ecologist. Like, I'm just a scientist. I'm an academic. I shouldn't be here." And by the end of this part one, we do know why he's there. Um, but it's really jarring. It's really exciting. So, all right, so let's get into it. So yeah, this planet is called Kiln, which I thought was a great name for an alien planet.
I love it. Because
Kiln.
it's It's a familiar word, but also a strange word.
Yeah, kiln. It like feels a little alien, and also you think of like, something that is baked inside a kiln, something that transforms from like wet clay to a hard ceramic, some sort of
Mhm.
transformative, but also under intense pressure and heat.
Agreed.
Yeah, even though like the first thing we see about the alien planet is the sky is blue, yellow, black.
I wrote that down.
I love that. I think they call them sky plankton, right?
Yes.
Sky plankton. So we're like alien planet. He comes to it. They call it revivification, is what they call it. The sort of bringing him back to life. We find out the status of this. Well, I guess that there's alien planets. Humans, the mandate, Earth, we assume, have sort of started to explore the stars. And I think about like 100 other planets that have some form of life, right?
It's 9. So there are 9 total planets with life.
Okay.
And then 6 of those 9, they have, I think there might be hundreds that have the conditions to sustain life, but only 9 have it. Only 3 of those have life that is large enough to be seen with the naked eye. And then of those 3, we have this like Goldilocks and the Three Bears construction of one is too
Oh.
hot, and that's the planet Swelter.
Swelter, another good name. And that has like, I think it's like geothermal, like hot oceans with snails with metal shells. And they say that planet's constantly trying to kill you with like heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah, and basically the only place that you see the visible life is like at the bottom of the ocean with these like jet pits of heat, sort of similar to Earth in that respect. And then there's one that's too cold, which is called Tar Pit, and there all the life is huge but very very slow moving because the temperature is so low, so everything is basically moving as though it's in molasses or a tar pit. And then last we have Kiln, which is the planet that is just right. In that the life looks somewhat familiar to people from Earth. It's not like too hot, it's not too cold. We can survive there apart from our biology. Because we don't really know just yet, but the life there is incredibly alien.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're sort of an ecologist, or I think he even calls him like a xeno-ecologist or specializing in, studying alien life, this is like the dream come true. Like this, if you want to study alien life as a scientist, there's something ironic where he got sort of like his, academic dream at the cost of his total freedom. He is sent here as a prisoner, a slave essentially, to but it's, his purpose there is that they send all these scientist prisoners there to go study what we learn is really alien life forms.
Right. Because, so like the mandate, which is this authoritarian regime, pays particular attention to science and keeping orthodoxy within science. And we learn eventually throughout the section, but I think it's more clear to explain right now.
Yeah.
That really what that is centered around is the centrality of humanity, the centrality of Earth in all things. So in biological systems, in evolution, humanity has been the point. And you have to believe that, and your science has to back that up in order for the mandate to not want to kill you.
Yes. So anyone who's sort of, like they like light scientists, they, exalt them, appreciate them, but only insofar as the scientists kind of say exactly what they want them to say.
Exactly.
And so our narrator, do we know his name at this point? I think it's Anton.
His
Or
name is Arton Daghdev.
Arton Daghdev.
Right. So then as he's arriving to the base, sees sort of like the ultimate surprise in that not only is there life on Kiln, but there seems to be structures that must have been built.
Yes, the first twist, we see ancient alien ruins. So, which, they found life forms, snails and things, but nobody had any idea that this was like a top secret, that this planet was harboring what looked like structures and buildings and things of some sort of sentient ancient alien civilization. So I think, yeah, they have like a dome where they go to work, where they put the kind of the prisoners and I don't think they have one of the like, structures in there, but they have like science labs and things, right?
They have science labs and things, and it's sort of built around one of those structures. What sort of unfolds over the next couple of chapters is we get a sense of like what the different working groups are doing in Kiln.
Yeah, there's
Um,
like and there's there's a whole social hierarchy here. There's the the scientists, the laborers, and they have different departments. They have like the excursions, who are the ones who go out into this alien landscape and get samples. There's the dig team, who I think is the scientists uncovering the ruins, and everyone sort of has a role to play here.
right, and there's prisoners, and there's also staff. And in the staff, the people who are not prisoners are called the science. They're like the people who are running all of the experiments. Just the prisoners themselves are like horribly abused all the time. It sort of did feel similar to Vin being like, "Oh my god, I got beat again," because they're
They're
just
constantly
constantly
being beat.
being, yeah, hit upside the head. Okay, so we've got excursions, dig support. Daghdev, we learned, will be on dig support. At first, he thinks it's like not going to be that great, and excursion sounds nicer, but oh, is he wrong?
And what's interesting is that he knows these people and they know him. I mean, not all of them, but he was an academic, and so I guess he was a really well known, pretty famous, pretty successful scientist. And so a lot of people have like know his name from reading papers, and a lot of people he's also like, oh, this was my teacher. I worked with this person. So it's this little kind of like mini world here where they have like previous relationships and things, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I also, so the one of the concepts that like sticks out from the first chapter is this idea of acceptable wastage, which
Yes.
is that there is a number of individuals or things on this trip to space that can die because it's just acceptable wastage. It's like a breakage thing.
I think it's like, didn't they say like 20% of people didn't wake up or something, or that's within their parameters? Because they just do not care about human life of these people. They're expendable. Like when even he gets there, he's assigned a number. He's assigned number like 2000 or something.
Something
And
like that.
he does the math, and he's like, if they ship over like say 30, 40 prisoners every so often, he realizes that the turnaround rate or that the death rate of these people must be pretty high.
Pretty high. And I think what's really interesting to think of, because what we're going to is these like competing systems of evolution and systems of biology, and where like the end point for ours is bureaucracy. And just
Yes.
like it's like super business like um way of thinking and structuring the world, which is opposed to what we encounter on Kiln, which we'll get to.
Yeah, the little mini society there is, they all have these previous relationships, but also there's a ton of paranoia and distrust because there's this idea of like informants, and that all of them, were rebels. They were, political activists, organizers who then got sold out and who were sent to jail. And so they're all kind of paranoid. Like, did you sell me out? Were you the informant? And no one really kind of trusts anybody because they think the other person was tortured and betrayed their friends.
And I also think it's funny that like whenever he refers to this like revolutionary activity, it's he calls it a revolutionary subcommittee. Like even like the subcommittee thing is so funny to me
Because that's what a
because it's
scientist would call it.
it's what a
It's like,
scientist would call it, it's what a bureaucrat would call it. It's
yes.
like it's so human centered. Anyway, so the first thing that happens to Daghdev when he gets to the settlement on Kiln is he gets called in front of Commandant Terrelin. Um, Terrelin? How do we want to go with that?
I just called him the commandment. Not
Okay,
commander, commandment.
Commandant.
Commandant Terrelin.
Yeah, whatever. He gets
Oh,
called in front of.
also
Go ahead.
Terrelin, sorry, I realized kind of sounds like Terra, which, is kind of like Earth,
Uh,
because he is sort of like a mini mandate.
you're so right. Chills. Um, so he gets called in front of Commandant Terrelin, who immediately sets to like intimidate Daghdev, and he outlines that what essentially Daghdev has been brought there to do, in part, like in addition to having to like serve out his sentence and die, is to figure out what the riddle of these alien builders is.
Yes, because there's no trace of whatever beings built this, and it doesn't even really seem possible because I can't find tools or any sort of bones or fossils, but then these structures, he's like, they must have been made by someone intelligent. And he just says that they have, and we see the structure. It looks like what's on the cover here. I think they describe it almost as like a big ceramic looking urn with like petal fronds coming out the top. And he says, no, like they had air conditioning, they had different like higher and lower status chambers. I don't really know what that meant. Do you know what that means?
I think that higher in the way that I took that is that it's like the space is differentiated in a uniform way across different buildings, meaning that different space had different use.
Oh, different purposes. Okay. So this commander, whatever Terralin says, this must be that is a sign of that intelligence. And what's our narrator's name? Arton? Arlon?
Arton Daghdev.
Arton, I'll just call him Dadev. But Dadev is like, he immediately thinks of, he's like, no, termites also have air conditioning and they also have higher and lower status chambers. So he's not convinced that they're sentient, but Terralin is pretty convincing. Terralin's like, no, they had a power source. Like they are intelligent beings.
Yeah, and one other thing that he talks about is like these graptolites, which are these like fossils that got imprinted on rocks and made ancient people think that they were drawings or writing that have like confused scientists in the past, and that's real. So essentially, Dadev is basically just like he's skeptical. He doesn't want to think that it's necessarily another human species because sort of his like way of doing science is trying to decenter humanity and trying to decenter the mandate and its way of thinking.
Well, the mandate's exact opposite. They want to be everything is in their image. Like, because we are this way, this alien species must be this way too. And so Terralin gives him, I think it gives him a glass of wine or something, or gives him a little bit of special treatment. As soon as he meets him, giving like, here's the way things go, here's these ruins, but it's also a way to make it so everyone else hates him because immediately they see him, this fancy scientist, getting special treatment, and the commander does it on purpose to kind of like help sow distrust and discord among all the prisoners working. Because it works. He goes back and he sees. We meet a couple other characters at this point. We meet his friend Ilmus.
Itrine, they use they them pronouns. Then there's also Parodies Okastor. These names are insane.
The names, I'm like, how far in the future are these names? Because they are some of are pretty. Or I'm like, what nationality is this? Or are these all just made up?
I think we're like pretty far in the future because it's not just that they're going to these alien planets. They've like settled all these colonies in the solar system that don't have alien life, and then they're spreading in a way beyond, even if they're not trying to settle these alien planets.
Right. We also meet someone named Helena Crone, which I think is such a cool name.
It's a really good name. She's the leader of the dig support team, right?
Dig support, yes. And then we also meet as a prisoner. Yeah, she's sort of like their manager, kind of, right? She manages, and she's sort of like, some of them are like, fuck this place, we hate this. Some of them are like, you know what, we're here, it's too late, let's just kind of work with them. And she's sort of on the latter train of thought.
Definitely
school of thought.
On the latter.
And then we meet Clem.
Clemish Baruda.
Clemish Baruda. I'll just call him Clemmy.
And he's got only one hand left, sort of mysteriously.
Yes. He's
and
got a prosthetic.
He gets introduced as like this brutish guy who we're sort of wary of. But then he grabs Dadev in a particular way and uses a hand signal as part of the communication of this revolutionary subcommittee that started in the Mandate lands on Earth, we assume, and is continuing into Kiln.
Yes, so Clem is like, if you think of like a classic anarchist kind of revolutionary, you don't think of Dadev, you think of Clem. And yeah, Clem does some sort of signal in the back of his neck, and he's like, no, they're like, the revolution is like still going on. The movement is still alive here in Kiln.
So they are planning something. We don't know what it is until we get later in the section, but we do know that they are attempting to rabble rouse.
Yes.
And Then we go
Rabble roused. You owe me 20 doxings.
boxings.
Add it to the chat. Boxings.
I'll add it to the chat. Next, we meet Nimel Pramat, who is part of the science.
Oh, this is the doctor lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with like rebel guy, doctor lady, commander man, because these names are all a little wonky.
Ridiculous.
But so we meet essentially an evil lady doctor who
With one leg.
One leg. So we see a lot of like prosthetics, and we're like, what's going on here? So evil lady doctor who is in head of the science department, and she's not a prisoner, she's a citizen in the mandate. And so this is when she shows him the man in the tank, right?
Yes.
So she's like, I've got something to show you. Ready? And I think she like literally calls him the man in the tank.
Yeah.
And we haven't
just going
really
to say the
seen
man in the tank is not named.
the man in the tank. We haven't, they've been working. We see the alien structure inside the dome when he first comes in, and we see the yellow, blue, black sky, but we haven't really seen much of this alien land because they're inside like a dome. They're protected. But we do see the man in the tank, and he is far gone. He seems to be infected with some sort of alien virus.
Yeah. And he's in this tank, and like all of his skin is puckering and pussing and sloughing off. And it's like growing into these boils that he then like picks, and then they explode and the goo goes everywhere. But then they're like quickly covered. I hate skin shit, but they're like, they're quickly like covered up with the membrane again, and then they start to grow and pus, and like this guy's dead.
There's also like rippling and puckering and dripping and popping and oozing, and so just like the most disgusting like skin condition you can imagine. He's got like alien herpes all over his body.
Yeah, all over his body. And she sort of uses this, the evil doctor lady, as a object lesson to teach Daghdev that like Kiln and Earth share 2/3 of their basic biological matter. So a third of it completely does not overlap from like Big Bang times. But the way that Kiln biology seems to work is that it's like always actively trying to get in and affect the cellular makeup of any other biology. It's like not passing on traits hereditarily. It's passing on traits in some sort of sideways infection viral type.
Like hacking the gene sequencer. This was a little beyond me.
I explained it in the best way that I know how, but like, yeah.
He was like, no, 2/3 shouldn't be enough for this to be possible. Like these alien parasites or viruses shouldn't be doing this thing to this man. Evil doctor lady is like, exactly. That's the mystery. That's what you're here to solve.
Yes.
And then this is interesting. So he's in his tank, but you can't hear anything. But then she turns on like the voice box. You can hear him, and he makes these disgusting, warbling, trilling, hooting noises, really disturbing. And then somebody or something from inside the dome answers that call in the same way, and you're like, "What the fuck is that?"
What the fuck is that? There's a lot of what the fuck is that
in
this book.
That gave me. I was like, "What?" That gave me like the creeps.
I know, and there's also like a zombie-like quality because like you get the picture that this guy in the tank would not still be alive if it weren't for whatever the fuck is
the burning
oozing through him. So there's like a zombie viralness to what's going on here.
And then we start seeing. Then we get to get some dissections, right?
We get the worm.
We get the worm. Our boy Adrian gets some bugs out. He knows we like those alien buggies.
Yeah, I don't. So Daghdev's team is studying this like gross worm critter. And here's how I picture it. And tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. It's basically like a tuber worm of about like a foot long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got these legs on one end. And then on the other end of it, it has a arm-like appendage with this cone-like hook sucker thing that it would shove into a victim or a fellow creature, and then it doesn't have jaws or a mouth in the way that we understand it, but the hook-like thing has these suckers in it that it can then suck the life out of whatever it hooks into.
Ew. I think so. Yeah, I imagine it like kind of like a big hot dog with like two chicken legs on one end that push it along, and then like a scorpion stinger in the front on the front end.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the evil doctor lady is like, he's like, does it ever like poke people? And she kind of alludes to, yeah, like, how do you think I lost my leg?
Exactly.
She's like, it pokes you, and then it's the most extreme pain you can ever imagine. And but so we start to see what his daily life as a scientist here is, and he's dissecting this disgusting creature, and this is where it starts to get really weird.
Really bonkers.
What he finds inside. He finds like inside this creature are other creatures.
Yeah. So it's like pushing on our idea of what an organism is, and between like a symbiote and a host creature. Because essentially all of these what we perceive to be organisms at first are component creatures that you can slice up and take apart, and then they are still fully alive things
Yeah,
in and
it's
of
like,
themselves.
you cut him open and he thinks, oh, these have got to be organs or appendages, and they're all independent creatures. And, he's not like on Earth, a parasite. He talks about some parasite worm goes into a wasp and takes it over and turns it into a zombie or wasp, or whatever. And this, like, the idea of like on Earth, parasites and viruses are all about control, they're all about takeover. But here, these organisms seems to all just be just working together, or at least a one unit. They're kind of like almost like Russian nesting dolls. Like inside one is another, inside one is another, but even less so because nesting dolls are like they go up in size, but these are like yeah. I think I saw an interview described them as like Lego pieces that like you can
Yeah.
put these little Lego pieces together, make one structure, pull them apart, and make another structure.
Yeah, and it reminded me of some like very stoned thinking that I've done in my time
Oh
about
yeah,
like yeah, just well, it's like two
do
trains.
tell, do tell.
It's like the one train is okay. So if I have like a gut microbiome,
Hmm.
and then like I have all of these creatures inside me, bacteria, like whatever. Why do I get to call myself the creature? You know what I mean?
Jacob,
All of,
these are harrowing thoughts.
I know, but like all of those little guys that make me up and gals
And gals,
and gals that make me up. Why do I get to decide that I'm like the most
you
important thing, that I'm me? And then it's also sort of like that classic stoned hypothesis of the Gaia theory that like
come again.
well, that like each planet is in itself its own organism. So like in the same way that I can think of my gut microbiome and the little bacteria and creatures that make me up as like one organism, you can also think of the earth as one
Yes.
organism.
Oh, yes, of course. The Gaia theory. The
The
Gaia
Gaia,
theorem.
the Gaia theory.
No, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, these. Well, first of all, those are some really extreme thoughts to be having while stoned, Jacob. That sounds kind of scary.
You've been there for a lot of them.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like the little microbe in your gut. That's like the real you.
Like I
Uh,
remember us having that conversation in college, and you were like, "Okay."
I was like, I'm trying to read Larklight here. Can you get these heavy questions away from me?
Okay, and then the other thing that we encounter, like soon after the worm, is Dr. Ilsa Rasmussen.
Yes. What do they call her? The ape or something? They have another kind of like the man in the tank for her. So yes, then we meet the creature that had the return call to the man in the tank, and we learn it's Doctor. What is it? Rasmussen,
Ilsa Rasmussen.
Ilsa Rasmussen, and he recognizes the name. He's like, no, wait, she is the OG scientist who was running this planet. Everyone knows her. She's famous. She should be dead. She's like 150 years old.
Yes. So, what is she? What's going on here? And she's sort of, it turns out, like, seems to be like the prototype man in the tank. Like, she's lived for over 100 years in isolation, being taken over by the life of Kiln.
Yes, she seems to be like another one of these like kind of like biological zombie type things. Disgusting, disturbing. I think she like puts her like mouth against the edge of the tank, and she's just been living in this like also very like sweaty and like fetid and jungly kind of vibe. And he's like, no, she should be dead. Like this, and they're like, no, whatever this virus is keeping her alive.
Right. She reminded me of, for video game heads out there, Genova from Final Fantasy VII, which was this alien creature that came to the planet that Final Fantasy VII takes place on, and then lives in a tank. And then these evil scientists take extractions from her and create these super soldiers in Sephiroth. So
I'll have to look that up for reference. But
you're gonna have to look up Genova.
Genova. She's in this tank, and I think she speaks in this disturbing alien biological noises, but then she also says human words, right?
She does eventually. I can't remember if she does right here.
I think she said. I think at one point she says one thing, but so we meet this, and it's ultra disturbing. They won't. I think like the man in the tank, they eventually throw into the incinerator.
Yeah.
But her they keep alive forever. The commander thinks that she might hold the key or some answers, or maybe even they have a personal connection. He can't just let her go. But the little government here, they withhold a lot of information. Like even as the readers, I'm like, wait, I want to like, what are the plants out there? What are the animals I want to see? But they control them and they release little tidbits just to sort of pique their intellectual curiosity to make them kind of like more interested in learning. But they keep a lot from them. Like I think the evil scientist lady mentions, he's like, how big are the creatures out there? And she's like, there's creatures like the size of elephants who like fly around. And I'm like, I need to see those.
Oh yeah, they like can expand up and catch wind currents.
Yeah, and she's like, they go really, really fast. I'm like, I literally need to see those.
I know, like I'm really hoping we go outside of the base in parts 2 and 3. I think we will.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure
we will.
I think he's shown the power source that these
Yeah,
alien
I didn't
structures
understand.
have.
I didn't understand this.
No, so another sort of he's still like, no, I think they're termites, and then they're like, and I think the evil scientist lady shows him some drone footage of they keep finding more and more of these alien ruins, like little settlements or colonies around the planet. Shows that the excursionists then go gather samples from, and shows him drone footage, and he's like, no, look, that's their power source. And I think it's some sort of like a vine type thing on top of the buildings that harvest solar power. It's just another sort of like really bioengineered technology.
Gotcha.
So we see that, but then now let's bring us to this creepy dinner.
Yeah, so creepy Commandant Terrelin hosts a little dinner.
And, like sends out like invitations and like 3D prints them like creepy formal outfits. It's
the outfits are weird. There's been a lot of attention paid to these outfits that the Commandant needs them to wear around him.
Like, and they say it's like 100 or 200 years out of fashion, and it's the commander invites his like favorite little scientist for this sort of total farce of a dinner because they're all prisoners.
Yeah, well, and then some of them, even if they're not like literal prisoners, they're prisoners in the sense that they can't actually do science or like investigate these things in a way that would yield answers because they have to follow the orthodoxy of the mandate. Obviously, the mandate doesn't know the answers here. So they've got to be really careful about the way that they present things. So essentially the dinner conversation boils down into 2 sections. The first, which is when evil Dr. Lady Nimel Pramat talks through what the kiln builders might have looked like. And then she essentially just describes a humans type alien, like a way that we would envision aliens traditionally.
Yes, it seems like they're all, again, the commandment is a little, he's a little king in his little mini kingdom, and he's having this dinner, and he's having his lady doctor present her theory of a hypothetical kiln alien. And yeah, it's a bipedal, it looks like a human made out of like creepy kiln animal parts.
Yeah, and there's a part where Daghdev, in his like being a funny narrator, refers to it as a Jenny Hanover. Do you know what that is?
No, what is that?
It's so cute.
What's a Jenny Hanover?
Oh,
I'm Googling it. Jenny Hanover. How do you know what this is?
I Googled it.
Wait. Oh, like a little.
So it's
Wait, I love it.
It's Jenny Hanovers, where they like go back to the late 1500s, and they were these carcasses of like either rays or skates or some sort of seed life that gets dried out and then positioned so that it looks like a little guy. So
wait, these are so fucking weird. Like it looks like a little dried alien husk.
Like we simply have to have this be the picture for this episode.
Yes,
on the socials.
On the socials.
Because like the one that shows up on Wikipedia looks like this manta ray that stood up and is using its tail as a little pipe.
Wait, that's so
Cute.
funny.
It's so cute. And,
Oh my god,
and
it's
there's
so cute.
and there's this other one that looks like it's a bat doing a vaudeville tap dance in front of a red sun. Do you
Wait,
see
these are
that?
yeah. Also, like when you said it's really cute, I was picturing like a little cartoon or something, not this sort of like disturbing dried animal husk, but it also is really cute.
Really cute.
Okay, so even on yeah, Wikipedia right here, it's like a carcass of a ray that has been modified by hand, then dried, resulting in a mummified specimen intended to resemble a fanciful fictional creature such as a demon or a dragon. That is a fanciful little creature.
I know. We love
I,
it.
I literally need one so badly. I'm gonna go on
And
eBay
then
and see if I can find one
I've never seen anything that's more you. Like in my entire life.
because it's like creepy and cute at the same time.
Okay, and then like I'll probably edit this out, but if you read the Wikipedia entry on these things, in the references section, it says that Jenny Hanover and Jenny Hanover 2 are airships in the Mortal Engines Quartet. All roads lead back to DDDS Pod, William.
Wait, that is the name of the ship. Oh my God! Wait, that was the. I'm shaking. I'm literally shaking.
It's crazy.
Wait, that is so fucking wild. Do not edit that out. Okay, that's our sign that we need to do Mortal Engines on the future Patreon.
Ugh, you guys
20
get so excited for the Patreon.
2026. 2026.
Set aside $5 a month.
Or we just do it on the regular. Okay, well, that's really funny too because that's, these are like biological creatures that were molded to look like mythological creatures. So that's a funny way of him to describe this sort of completely made up, pretended to like made up creature masqueraded as like a scientific hypothetical one.
Well, right, and one of the things I keep thinking about is like even Daghdev, they're like, well, where are the tools? We can't find the tools. And that's such a human way of understanding the concept of building anything.
Yes.
That like humans are the tool using creatures, therefore intelligent life has to also be a tool user. And we don't even like know that.
And so he's kind of fun. And also, I think they say too, they're like, look, here's art, here's writing that they do. And he's still not convinced. And he's at this dinner and he is like embroiling with rage. He's blowing up.
He's like so angry he has no choice but to fuck the doctor lady.
He fucks the doctor lady. Well, yeah, this is when we see like kind of like a turn. I mean, this is the climax of part one. We see a turn in his character because, we've seen him sort of he seemed just sort of like a scientist, like, we don't really understand why he is this rebel, but he gets so angry at this scientist lady here for this completely made up Jenny Hanover.
Yeah. that he's got no choice but to screw. And the other thing that happens when they're thinking about the writing is that we learn that Ilsa Rasmussen, Tank Girl, uses her own excrement to write these same symbols in her tank.
Yes, it's really disturbing. Like biological matter to write these symbols, which they're like, look, it's like a language. I imagine it looks kind of like elvish alien, but he's like, no. Same. But yeah. So at this table, we learn that the mandate is obsessed with like trying to like taxonomize, is that the word? Like, classify, put everything into rigid little boxes, little structures. They want, complete control over the science. They want it to fit into the mold of how they view science. And, but Daghdev is like, that's not how science works. Like, not everything fits in a box. You can't categorize everything this way. And so then we kind of learn, I was like, we kind of learned like why he was this political activist or revolutionary. And I think I wrote it down right now, is that his whole reasoning for rebelling against the mandate, for kind of doing all these illegal things, is that he hates the mandate scientific dishonesty. He's like, it was this intellectual dishonesty of the whole orthodox thing that galled me into action. Science as a creed should be about truth. And that is his whole reasoning for why he did what he did that ended up getting him put in jail.
Right. So he's like rebelling against the idea that science should back up established ways of thinking. Science should establish the ways of thinking. And like thinking should conform around the science. But like that's like tough if you think about it, because you can't have the thought outside. And I think it's sort of what he's struggling with here with the kiln biology, is that he can't really have the thought outside of the way that things are currently. Does that make sense?
No.
No.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like, in order for him to understand the alien biology, he has to completely not think in the ways that he does.
Okay.
But can he do that?
Oh, because like everything, and he's only human, but is he like a more open-minded human than the rest of the mandate?
Right. Or is he going to have to get infected by the kiln biology in order to understand the kiln biology?
Stop. No, I hope. I don't want him to get alien herpes. Well,
He's definitely.
Maybe he got it from he's got it by that, or maybe he got it from the scientist lady. So yeah, he fucks the scientist lady, and then steals a data cube from her.
Yeah, for the revolutionary subcommittee.
He's like, kind of all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, you're kind of a badass.
Oh yeah, he is.
He's like, fuck this bitch, literally stole her stuff.
Oh, and then the next sequence I thought was so scary. Which is the station gets attacked by this urchin-like alien creature.
Yes, it's like, oh, there's been a containment issue. Like one of these alien creatures has found its way into the dome. Jacob, I know you loved this creature.
It really scared me.
It's like he describes it as like almost like a sea spider or like a sea urchin, but that there's sort of no up or down, but it's just this spiky ball with a bunch of like long, buggy spiderweb legs and pincers coming out of it in all directions, and it's like a spider / monkey, and it moves really fast, and
like uses those legs to jump around, and just like it ends up landing on top of Ilsa Rasmussen's roof.
Yes, it's like coming for her,
and they start to talk.
Yes, it seems like this thing will run up walls, jump at anything. Like I think they're trying to shoot at it, they can't stop it, and it's like coming for the lady in the tank, like almost like trying to save her or free her or something, or she's communicating with it.
And then from Daghdeav's like observation of it, he thinks that the alien came for her, landed on her roof, and they were having a conversation. And then mid-conversation, the guards shoot the thing dead. Which takes a while because they had to like shoot the body, and then the legs broke off, and obviously the legs are its own creatures again, just with the symbiosis of the planet.
Yeah, it's almost like a Mr. Potato Head doll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know what the other thing this whole book is reminding me of is?
Scavenger's Reign.
Exactly. Exactly. Scavenger's Reign.
100%. I mean, this, like, if anyone sees Scavenger's Reign, it's this show on HBO. It's sci-fi adult animated, but like gorgeous, insanely gorgeous, stunning, bizarre alien life.
Disturbing.
Disturbing. I feel like they're saying, like, this is Scavenger's Reign.
Yeah, book. Yeah, agreed.
And I think I looked at some interviews, and he said, I think he wrote this book before the show came out, but he's like, I'm obsessed with that show. That's exactly how I picture this alien planet.
Yeah, if you're a fan of this book right now and you're reading along, or you're a fan of us talking about it, watch Scavenger's Reign.
Yeah. Or just even watch an episode of Scavenger's Reign before, and then you can imagine exactly what all this alien life looks like.
Yeah, and like the way that your frame of reference has to break to understand its life systems.
Yeah, because it's not what we think it is at all. We just can't wrap our heads around it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Annihilation, a little bit too, just in the sort of like Annihilation, Scavenger's Reign are kind of the two references I thought of. But all right, we're almost at the end of part one here.
We are.
So they kill that spider bug lady.
Yeah, and then the Revolutionary Subcommittee decides it's time to end. They print out some guns, and they're like, we're going to use these shitty guns to take out the guards. Then we're going to commandeer a ship that's going to take some of us back home, because once we're back home, everyone's going to realize that the mandate can't keep everybody out forever. They don't have that power, and it's going to foment additional revolution. That goes to shit very quickly.
Yeah, Clem's plan. They've been meeting secretly, I think, by the reclamation tanks, which are tanks where they throw dead bodies and trash and it just gets recycled and reprinted. That's the one place they have these secret meetings. And this uprising happened, I thought, very fast. It just kind of like, I guess he's been, off the page has been kind of working with them to help steal information, help get these guns. And so they were like, all right, it's the uprising. It's here. Like, let's go fuck shit up. But it goes very poorly.
It's really, really poorly. Like, you kind of always know as a reader that it's going to go poorly because
Yeah.
Daghdev is like, well, this is just not going to work. And
Yeah.
I'm barely going to explain it to you. One of the like funny bits of writing that I wrote down was like moments after they've like taken over. It seems like they might be able to shoot some of the guards. One of their leaders gets shot and killed. And he says that their business entered a rapid closing down sale. Like going out of business.
The narrator is funny.
He's really funny.
He's really funny. He's really quick and sort of like has a sense of humor about everything that's really dark and fucked up.
Yeah. So the Revolutionary Subcommittee has failed. And then Daghdev gets brought in front of Commandant Terlin, who is high-key pissed. Because even after all of this special treatment, even after all of the advantages that Daghdev has been given, he participated in the subcommittee.
He's like, I gave you a chance. I gave you wine, and you betrayed me. Tisk, tisk.
I let you fuck the doctor lady.
I let you fuck the evil doctor lady. You could have at least given me a heads up that these guys were planning on rebelling.
Pretty much. So then Commandant Terlin says that Daghdev is going to be assigned to excursions, which means that he's going to die. Basically, everybody who gets sent to excursions gets infected by something. Then in the process of gassing the
Decontamination.
Decontamination. They eventually die because too much of their systems get taken over by the alien life. But before he gets to go on an excursion, they're going to force him into the tank.
They throw him in the tank with the lady. It's really fucked up. She is so gross. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. She's like, I think there's a mesh between them, but she just shoves her like face against it, and it's like swampy and buggy and weird and gross. And
the smell.
And the
Just
smell.
imagine that the smell must be.
Yeah, like toxic, mildewy kind of fetid ickiness, and really disturbing. And he's fucking losing his mind. He is losing his shit.
And this is when Ilsa talks to him. This is when he hears the mandate language, which is, you hear me, doctor, you understand? Cure yourself, doctor, cure. I'm so alone. And then he like buries his face away from her, and he starts to feel as though he's being infected. We don't know that he's been infected. I think he's going to be infected. But even as he can feel that he might be taken over by the Kiln life, he starts to try to imagine what could have built the Kiln life, and it's exactly the Jenny Hanover creation. He like retreats into the safety of thinking that actually this life isn't that alien. There must have been life like us in order to create these things.
Yeah, it seems almost like he's like they broke him. Like, he's like, this Jenny Hanover thing isn't real. This isn't possible. And then his uprising fails. They lock him up, and he's really like losing his mind. Like, he's like, this is complete psychological torture. And then he's like, no. Like, I believe in the Jenny Hanover creature. Like, this must be real. What'd you make of that?
It's like it is very much. It feels like he's breaking, and I can't tell if it's like him breaking to the mandate or like it's him breaking to a way that's comfortable for his psychology to take in what's happening to him. Like, this is kind of the ultimate horror, that you might be being taken over by this alien life thing that you don't understand, that your skin's going to slough off and you might live forever in concert with this like gross thing. And so to try to understand it, is he, going into safer climes, or is he actually been broken by the mandate and he's going to be subservient now? We'll find out.
We'll find out. But that's how part one ends. Part one is what called Liberté. Liberté, very Francese. And then, so that's, I think, what the first 12 chapters, right?
Yep.
First 12 chapters. Part two is called Égalité.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Liberty to equality. So these are Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. That's the revolutionary slogan of the French Revolution, and it's France's motto.
Okay.
So revolution is key to what's
Well,
going on here.
so wait, what are your thoughts on part one?
I think that part one, I'm disturbed. I want to know what's going to happen next. I think it's like a very promising beginning. I love all this alien stuff. I'm still a little nervous it's going to end up over my head, but thus far, I think I'm tracking it.
With
What
the
about you?
science? I know. I'm
Yeah.
always like, I'm like, okay, they're like Legos. I'm like, yeah, how can I like understand it enough to sort of like, because yeah, so this is, this is hard sci-fi. So we went
Yes.
from high fantasy to hard sci-fi.
Went from the softest fantasy.
Like
I mean,
literally,
I
is
sucked
there?
down a medal and I did something.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that I can get. And this is like genome sequencing, and like, I'm like, I don't know about that. So, is there low sci-fi?
Like
I'm
space
sorry,
opera.
low fantasy. Because if there's high fantasy, is there low fantasy? Maybe like so. There's high fantasy, but there's hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. I usually prefer soft sci-fi, honestly, but this is true hard sci-fi. I really liked it. I didn't realize it'd be like the horror elements. I wasn't really expecting.
I wasn't expecting the horror elements, and I mean, obviously with science fiction, I expect more social commentary, but this is like very social commentary first.
Yeah, I didn't expect it either. And it is like the questions that are they're asking is really interesting and like because there's this idea of, control and trying to like put you have these alien life forms that are all different creatures all kind of like conglomerating onto one and working in unison towards whatever their survival goals are of the creature. These kind of like working together versus these humans who are, fighting each other. We have the uprising, we have the oppressive regime, and kind of the contrast of them is really interesting.
Right. And like in the human regime, it's all about knowing, it's all about putting things in a box. And then the alien life is like, there is no box. We're
There's no
just always
box.
trying to infest each other and
We're
grow
just
together.
constantly becoming. It seems like there's just constantly becoming different creatures, and as if there isn't even any set species, which for humans is impossible to even really fathom or wrap your head around.
And really challenging and
Yeah.
scary.
Yes.
Big
Uh,
questions this week on DGDS Pod.
I like these. Yeah. So I really like these kind of novels. These sort of like, exo ecosystem, because what they are is at their core is that they're mystery novels. It's like
Yep.
it's like the mystery of this alien ecology is sort of the fundamental, question or plot or mystery that the book is going to try to solve by the end.
I also like that it's a standalone, not a long
Yes.
series. We can expect a variety of answers. We can expect a variety of ambiguity that's all like intended.
Yeah, it's kind of refreshing to have, and especially for this guy who's written a 10 book series, another one just to have a standalone. Um, I'm really, really excited to get out into the alien world.
Me too. And I think that that's going to happen as he joins the excursion team in part 2, Liberté.
Yeah,
No,
I think part 2 and 3 are going to get really exciting, really cool alien stuff. Definitely watch Scavenger's Reign to give you a little primer so you can imagine it. But if you want to read along for next week, part 2, I think it's even shorter. I think it's just like 100 pages.
It is.
It's pretty. I mean, the words are pretty big. The text is pretty big.
And it's like the concepts are difficult, but the writing is fun enough
Yeah, it's
that
quick.
you don't like, you can like enjoy the writing of it and take what you get.
Yeah, I definitely read it pretty fast. But okay, really excited for part 2. Um, I will see you next week, Jacob.
Yep. We'll be back next week.
And thank you, listeners. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Hey, daddies, bring your dragons, let's go to deep space, yeah.